The very first topic we have to refresh ourselves on: special right triangle ratios. And this is review from geometry specifically. Back in geometry, you learned about two special cases of the right triangle. These have a relationship between the sides that is maintained based on these angle measures. On the left here, this is the 30, 60, 90 triangle. And on the right, this is the 45, 45, 90 triangle. If you have the 30, 60, 90 case of the triangle, then the lengths are going to compare in this manner. The side across from the 30 has a length of 1. The side across from the 60 has a length of square root 3. And the side across from the 90 is double the shortest side, so it's 2. It's helpful if you are able to remember 30, 60, 90 is 1 rad 3, 2. (45, 45, 90 is easier to remember because two of these sides are exactly the same. The sides across from the 45 degrees, those are going to be the exact same length. They're both going to be length 1. And the side across from the 90, that has length square root 2. So a 45, 45, 90 triangle, its sides are 1, 1 rad 2, square root 2. For the test, you must have these ratios memorized. You must know which goes with which triangle. Yeah, go ahead.
Is that 45, 45, 90? Is that the Pythagorean theorem thing?
Both of them are. Both of these relationships can be proven and discovered using the Pythagorean theorem.
Oh, so
The next piece of information you must know. Back in geometry again, you learned 3 trig functions. Hopefully you remember the acronym SOHCAHTOA, SOHCAHTOA. Let's start with the SO, the S. That's one of our 3 functions. What is the S representing? What word? Sine. So we have sine, and I'm going to write it the way you're going to see it. Sine of theta equals the O and the H. That's the order of its ratio, O over H. What do O and H represent?
opposite hypotenuse.
Perfect. Opposite and hypotenuse. The hypotenuse is the side of the right triangle that is across from the 90. It's the longest side. Next we have the cos, C-A-H. What does C represent?
Cosine.
Cosine is correct. C-O-S for short. Cosine of theta is equal to A over H. That H is still hypotenuse. What does the A represent? Yes, adjacent. So adjacent over hypotenuse. And lastly, we have TOA. What does T represent? Tan. Tangent, good. So T is for tan, and tan is short for tangent. This is O over A, opposite over adjacent. All of that hopefully was review for you. You have seen it before. We spent a whole unit on it in geometry. What we don't tell you in geometry is there are 3 more trig functions. The good news is all 3 of them pair up with one of the original trig functions. So it's not a major leap from one to the other. These are the 3 reciprocal trig functions. Yes.
Is that like sine for negative first?
No, that's inverse. Inverse. We're going to get to that though. So let's start with the original 3 and get to the 3 new ones. Sine of theta is O over H. Cosine of theta is A over H. And tangent of theta is O over A. The reciprocal of sine, the 3 letters are CSC theta. I'll tell you what that stands for in just a moment. What do you think its ratio is? Remember, these are reciprocal functions. Reagan? H over O. Good. So it's just the reciprocal of sine. We flip the ratio. CSC is short for cosecant. Cosine, its reciprocal function is SEC theta. And its ratio, you just flip cosine's ratio, so H over A. SEC is short for secant. As you can imagine, it would make more sense if sine and secant went together and cosine and cosecant went together, but unfortunately that's just not how the names shook out. So keeping these 2 pairs straight is going to be a little difficult. The good news is on your test and quiz, we will set these up for you and we will put the pairs right next to each other so you don't have to do that work. Just know it will always be set up that way. Luckily, tangent is the easiest one to pair up with its reciprocal. It's COT theta equals A over O, and COT is short for cotangent. I know this bit of information may seem a little overwhelming, but when you see what we do with it, you'll realize it's really not that bad. There's one more thing I need to show you. And it won't seem super helpful right now because you're just going to have to believe me that this is true. But as we progress through this unit and the coming units, you're going to find that knowing this bit of information is going to be extremely helpful. This last piece of information, rules for where sine, cosine, and tangent are positive in the plane. So let's sketch our plane here. I'm going to make it quite large. In each quadrant, write sine, cosine, tangent. These patterns that I'm about to show you, they will arise naturally the more you work with these, but for now, again, you're just going to have to believe me that this works. In the first quadrant, all three functions have a positive value. In the second quadrant, only sine is positive, the other two are negative. In the third quadrant, only tangent is positive and the other two are negative. And lastly, fourth quadrant, only cosine is positive and the other two are negative. So in first quadrant, all positive. Second quadrant, sine is positive. Third quadrant, tangent is positive. And in the fourth quadrant, cosine is positive. This is helpful to know when checking your answers. Again, when we do an actual problem, I'll show you how that's helpful information. But there's an acronym we use to remember the four quadrants without just straight up memorizing what is where. So in the first quadrant, they're all positive. So we use an A for all. And the word in the acronym is actually all as well. In the second quadrant, we use an S for sine. And the word we use in the acronym is students. Third quadrant, tangent is positive, so we use a T. And the word in the acronym is take. And then C for cosine in the fourth quadrant, and the word we use is calculus. So as you can see, the acronym is all students take calculus. Quadrant 1, all are positive. Quadrant 2, S is positive, sine. Quadrant 3, tangent. And quadrant 4, cosine. There are other teachers who use different versions of this acronym, so just a heads up, when you switch teachers at second semester, some of you will, you might hear it a different way.